Hey everyone, welcome back to another video on the JayBee Milly channel. I am JayBee. Now today we have 7 new screenshots to cover, but before we do that, credit to the people that brought us the screenshots. We have Scooby News on Instagram and Velma Brazil on Twitter. I believe it was the Twitter account that originated these screenshots, so huge shout out to them, and of course for Scooby News for kind of distributing it so that we could see. Really grateful. Now, a bit of a spoiler alert, we don't have any insights or any insider knowledge into what's going to go on with this series, and we haven't had any review copies or anything, so we're purely speculating in this video. However, if something we do predict comes true, or if we speculate on something, that actually ends up being revealed in the show, and you don't want to know any spoilers, then I would recommend maybe clicking off this video and coming back after you've seen this episode for yourself, and maybe telling us what we've got right and what we've got wrong. But regardless, let's break this down. The first screenshot we have is from Daphne in her bedroom. So I guess starting from the left hand side, we're getting a bit of personality details. So there's that kind of lipstick mark on her mirror. Don't know if that's like a design choice, or if it's perhaps giving us an insight to some of her vanity, maybe. But that's kind of neither here nor there. The bottom of that, we have some of those little dots again. The one that I compared in the last episode to being a bit like Into the Spider-Verse, that comic book dot effect. And I don't quite know what it's achieving here. It doesn't seem to be consistent throughout, any of it, apart from maybe the bottom left and bottom right. I don't quite know. Maybe it's just a style choice. Not too sure. But we can see from the general vibe of her room that, as normal, what we'd expect from Daphne is she does seem to have quite rich parents, a bit like Fred as well. I'm wondering if this is just going to be an underdog story, like maybe, Velma's the only one from a kind of more middle class background. I really don't know. But I do like the detail in this room overall. We see on the wall there's a woman with a hockey stick. And we seem to find this exact same hockey stick, there's that kind of same red ribbon or the kind of red light over her door, which has been split in half. So I'm wondering if this is a really famous hockey player. Maybe there was an infamous game that she maybe hit the winning score and the hockey stick snapped, and so Daphne, having rich parents, being a fan of that hockey player, has perhaps collected some of that memorabilia. Really cool to see. Now, I can't really make out the text from the other poster, the one of the skull, except that it says Tom, and then I think the A is meant to be like that kind of is the anarchy symbol. So it's Tom and then something beginning with A. No clue if that's a real artist. I doubt it. Maybe a bit of a missed opportunity for a Hex Girls reference. But yeah, there's a boy band, I guess, and there's a sports personality. Under that hockey player, there's a photo of what looks like an older woman. I want to say that could be her grandma, maybe even her mum, as I don't believe we've seen Daphne's family yet. Equally, it could be this hockey player growing up, so maybe that poster was from a while ago and now maybe she met her at a convention or something to that effect. I don't quite know who that person could be. Now, above Daphne's bed, there's a lot of people there, and I'm thinking that that's Daphne and all of her sisters. She was introduced as having a lot of sisters in Mystery Incorporated, and I think that's possibly been carried over here. So maybe we're going to meet them, or maybe Daphne's the youngest and the others have gone to college or university, or maybe we just haven't seen them yet. But it does seem like Daphne has quite a big family. Now, there's more telltale signs here. If you go above even that photo, there's a shelving unit, and there's a couple of trophies. Now, the one on the very left-hand side, I think you can only speculate what that is. I've seen, it kind of looks a bit like a chess piece, but I actually think that the bit underneath the roundness is relatively inconsequential. So initially I'm thinking it could be a tennis ball because of the shading, but I think the shading, because it's consistent even throughout the stem of the trophy, that's all it is. I think in light it would just be one consistent colour. I'm guessing this is a hockey ball. I apologise to any hockey fanatics if there's a special name for the ball, but I'm just going to call it a hockey ball. And that would make sense because she could look up to this hockey player on the wall as someone that inspires her to take it up. So that's what it could be. But because it's just a generic ball, it could be anything, such as golf, take your pick of ball games. But based on the hockey stick on the poster, I think Daphne's got a hockey award there. And to the right hand side, a ballet award, a teddy bear, and then some books. I think that's all we can tell about Daphne's personality from the bedroom itself. But now focusing in on Daphne, it does seem like this continues quite consistently from the last episode, in that she's holding one of those crystals that Norval was showing her in the previous video we did in the previous episode of the show. So it's almost like maybe she's got one and he's got one, and they're both like tasked to deal with it separately. I don't quite know. She definitely does only have the one, but it's interesting that she's pondering it. You can clearly see that she's curious about it. She's on the scent of the mystery. So it's kind of interesting. Like, does she just wonder about the material, or does she actually have a stake in the in the overall plot? It's difficult to tell for now, but yeah, that's Daphne. And now we have one of my favourite kind of glimpses of the show, and that's Norval playing the horn and Daphne looking a bit upset. I kind of want this to blossom into a really fun friendship, that kind of overly excited, eccentric character kind of dealing with that more timid, stoic character, kind of a bit like a buddy cop type deal. That's the kind of dynamic I'm getting from this image. I hope it doesn't get to the point where Norval annoys us as the audience. It could get there, but I think if it's just Norval annoying Daphne, I think it's going to be quite a fun friendship dynamic there. And it does look like that's what it's setting up. And here's a kind of bonus thing that I'm just picking up on. You see the twiggy trees in the background, and what I speculated was a cottage because it looked like a bungalow, like a one floor type deal. That seems to be what was in the background of that anime Fred, close up that we had, I think 2 episodes ago now. So wherever that scene took place for Fred, it does seem like it's relatively close to here. Now, if they're replicating real life, I do appreciate that a lot of the same neighbourhood houses are often carbon copies of each other, and trees aren't that unique in the grand scheme of things, but it does make sense for the gang to either live on the same street, or at the very least the same neighbourhood, certainly to attend the same school. But yeah, that's what we're getting from there. Other than that, that's about it. Obviously there's the closer look of Daphne, but I don't think there's much else to gather from this. I mean, if you're putting it at a stretch, if you look across the road, we have a basketball there. Now, Fred is typically quite sporty. I mean, he could be that jock, the jock archetype maybe. And so you could say, hey, maybe that's Fred's house over the road. He does look like he lives in a bit of a bigger place than that, like significantly. But who knows, maybe his parents have a second place. We don't know. It's a bit of a stretch, but I don't think there's anything else that we can get from this image. The next screenshot shows Velma and someone outside, definitely her house. We can see from the inside decor that this is Velma's house. So she lives at number 79 somewhere. And there's not a lot to say about this. I guess if there's one thing that I forgot to mention is that this episode is called The Marching Band Sleepover. And so obviously, I don't think this is going to be an overly, interesting or important character, apart from the fact that he's in the marching band. And again, that explains why Norval was playing the instrument on the way to Daphne's. It does seem that there's 2 hosts. There's 2 separate sleepovers. You've got Daphne's sleepover and you've got Velma's sleepover. That definitely seems like that's the vibe. And I've even seen, I think it was even the original Scooby-Doo Brazil page on Twitter that was speculating that this character to the left is Red Herring. I think that would be absolutely hilarious. And I'll just imagine a sequence where they kind of take that joke a bit further. Maybe Red Herring gets arrested, prosecuted, and people kind of forget about him. Maybe there's an end of the post-credit scene where someone realizes, oh yeah, Red's still in jail. Like, he's facing this trial. I don't know. Something like that. I think it'd be funny to kind of full circle make that an actual joke. And I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think it is Red Herring. I'm going to say that right off the bat. but it's an interesting theory nonetheless. This is just a bit of a close-up, I guess, of progression of Norval and Daphne's night, where their marching band comes to Sleepover. It's kind of interesting, like, there really isn't a lot to say about this except for you see Shaggy and Daphne almost setting up the sleepover, or maybe they're just the first ones to arrive, of course, with one of them, presumably Daphne, being the host, and these guys just kind of show up. Very interesting. I wonder why they're having this type of sleepover. If the school have tried to encourage bonding, if there's a battle of the bands, maybe that could be something, and also explain why there's seemingly two sleepovers going on in this episode. But I love this look of Daphne. You really get the idea of sassy Daphne who's just fed up having to hang out with the quote nerds. Like, I mean, I don't want Daphne to be mean-spirited by any stretch of the imagination, but if this is the start of her journey, it does make sense to have some of those maybe judgmental and sassy, maybe a bit entitled views to be ironed out a bit. And that classic Daphne pose is absolutely amazing. So we'll see what happens. Again, I don't think these band players are going to be over important to the narrative of the story, but it's interesting. It's interesting to have them here. It seems like I have to take back some of the words I said about a previous screenshot. So I predicted that those bottles on the kind of table there, I thought that that effect of like the brown liquid coming out of it was beer overflowing or beer residue, and that's why I initially thought that Velma's dad maybe had a bit of a drinking issue, but it seems like that is just the style, so possibly disregard the things I said about maybe Velma's dad drinking too much, so it seems like that maybe is not a factor, but it could be, but it happened, off screen. Regardless, those bottles don't seem to be any evidence leading to that way, so first and foremost, it's good to have more screenshots of the same area, because now I can kind of look and go, yeah, probably I didn't give an accurate assessment of that screenshot. But let's look around here. This seems to be the other side of the sleepover, because look at as we say, we've established that we're in Velma's house, but these are different band members. Now, I really hate to say this, because I know that people hate any form of SJW stuff and like wokeness, but I'm going to point this out just being a simple fact. By Velma's guess and Daphne's guess, there does seem to be a bit of a racial divide. Now, I know that there was an almost Indian looking person playing the saxophone at Daphne's party. I'm not saying that it's a complete rift, but maybe it factors into the story at the very least, that maybe Velma's like, hang on, we're underrating these people, so I'm going to host their party if they're not invited to the quote main one. I don't know. It's something that I've noticed. It could be nothing. It could be something. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but from a story perspective, that could be what we're seeing here. And notice how they're all playing the drums. I know there's that one guitar player to the left-hand side, but for the most part, it seems like Velma is maybe carrying her own type of, she looks like she's giving a grand speech. Maybe she's trying to inspire the people that she may view as underrated like her or kind of overlooked. Okay, this is maybe the most Scooby-like screenshot we have had. We've got a very spooky looking location, seemingly a bit of an abandoned harbour area, an abandoned beach. It definitely looks more traditional Scooby than a lot of what we've seen so far. So let's analyse the background. A lot of it does seem to just be anonymous buildings. I mean, if I'm going off Minecraft, that building directly behind Daphne looks a bit like a church. But then to the right hand side there's a cave opening, and you definitely see the word quartz above that on like the signage. Maybe it says quartzite, which doesn't really make sense to me personally. I don't know if quartzite is an actual ore or anything, or it could just be a company, like Mystery Incorporated had Destroido. There could be a mining company here called Quartzite. It seems to have fallen in a bit of disrepair, but there we have it. I don't know if it's a company or if it's an actual precious element, feel free to let me know if you know if quartzite is an actual thing that is to be mined, or if you do think it is, but a company. Now here we have one of the most interesting things. There's like a totem pole that seems to be a reference to Miner 49 with a bit of a bullseye in the mouth. I don't see why that's there. I mean, there's arrows scattered on the floor. This is definitely an abandoned theme park of some type. Now, to the left, it seems to say Crystal something. So definitely we do seem to be set in Crystal Cove. And like Crystal Cove from both the TV show and Daphne and Velma books, there could be some mystery with the crystals, and that's why Daphne's come here. Let's not forget, Norval and Daphne were looking through some of those crystal elements, both in this episode and the previous, so it could be that by doing research he's almost tracked it down as this location in origin. That's a very, valid point. And to the right we have the mining experience, which kind of reminds you of Mr. Wickles' plan from Scooby-Doo 2 with the all-time mining town. So maybe that's going to come up here, we never know. And there's also signage for a cafe. So without a doubt we have Daphne. We don't know if she's alone, but she's definitely looking out an old abandoned theme park that seems to be centered around mining. Again, let me know if you're thinking Scooby-Doo 2 around about this time. But yeah, there's one more screenshot to go. Let's see how much it reveals. This scene doesn't seem connected to a lot of anything in this episode. There's no reference to the marching band Sleepover, nor Daphne's kind of exploration of the crystal. But we do get to see more of that Fred teaming up with Velma dynamic. Again, if you look at the left-hand side, a bit up of Fred, over his shoulder, that picture that's sellotaped on the wall of lockers, it seems to be maybe a crystal, but it could also be a mountain. Other than that, there's a box of lost ballots. So what's interesting about that is I almost missed this. So of course you'll know that a ballot is some type of way of voting for something or someone. So for instance, we did reference that, vote for something. So it could be class president, it could be prom king, prom queen, like we said. And so it makes sense that there are ballots here. I don't get why it would be titled Lost Ballot, as if anything is labelled lost, it kind of isn't lost, it's there. So I don't know. It could be that they're just the ballots in general, and maybe Fred's trying to fiddle with the results a bit, maybe, because we've speculated in this series that he has a crush on one of the popular girls. He could be trying to fiddle the votes so that she wins. I mean, definitely the ballots do seem to connect with that kind of school voting subplot. So how that's important, why Fred looks so angry, I don't know. But it almost seems like two separate scenes crunched together here, because look at Velma. She looks terrified. And so why would, Fred be angry at a box and Velma's terrified looking up? It definitely doesn't seem like we're getting the full story with this. I mean, if you look behind, there's a bathroom. I don't know how that factors into things. But there says some weird skull ? On that box area there. It could just be that they're looking through different boxes and that skull maybe falls out, but they haven't released it because maybe they don't want to get, I don't know, maybe they don't want the backlash. Maybe the skull is there but they've removed it. It's really difficult to tell with this. This is maybe the more perplexing of the two, because Fred seems like he is making sense to the point where you can kind of piece together, oh, he's interested in the voting system that we know is happening at the school. But Velma's just kind of doing her own thing. I really don't know what to make of it, but if you have any theories about this one in particular, please make sure to comment them down below, because honestly, I'm stumped at this one. I really don't have the faintest idea. But that's why it's great to be able to make these videos and post them, because hearing everyone's different theories about the series is what I think is going to keep the community side of this show alive, even if the show itself doesn't end up being great. We can at least have fun discussing it and theorizing. So if you do want to see more, I do think we're on the last one. But that will hopefully be coming out tomorrow. Please make sure to leave down below what you think I got right, what you think I got wrong, and if you do want to see more, then please like, comment, and subscribe to JayBee Milly.